Gig Gab, episode 493 for Monday, August 4th, National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day 2025. Woohoo!
I gotta get some.
Yes, same. I don't know that they'd be good to eat while we're recording, though.
No, that would be rude to you, sir.
Yes, it'd be rude to everybody listening. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Our sponsors today include gigperformer.com/giggab, where you can go and get 10% off of this plug-in host, audio mixer, backing tracks player, live performance app that brings it all together in the most reliable of all ways. So gigperformer.com/giggab and rockandrollercart.com, where code giggab20 saves you 20% on all carts, something we all need, especially me and my guest co-host today. I'm here in Durham, New Hampshire. I'm Dave Hamilton. And today, my guest co-host, as I mentioned in the last episode, is Scott Smith, coming back to the show from North County Band, and we're going to have just a jam session, old school Gig Gab. Let's talk about our gigs. Let's talk about what's going on in our lives that's impacted our gigs, what we have coming up. Scott, thank you so much for doing this again.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. I'm talking to you from Reading, Connecticut, and I got the chance to meet you in person last year.
Yes.
It's so good to be back on the show. Can I start by saying that a couple years ago, you talked about in-ear headphones, and you had recommended these Alclair headphones, and I lost mine. I think I told you I lost mine. They disappeared for months, and then they just recently reappeared. So that was a big win, and that's what I'm using right now. Amazing.
I also have a set of Alclairs in my ears right now. I can't find the box for them. I'm sure it's within arm's reach, but probably not within my eye's view. But yeah, I've been impressed with the Alclair in-ears. I will say that I have 3 sets of them that they sent me. I mentioned, different models so that I could test out, the kind of the entry model and then things on the higher end. The ones that I was using, that I do use routinely for gigging, I found that twice in the course of about a year, one of the low-end drivers died. Yeah. And when it happened the first time, I thought, okay, well, whatever, fine. I sent it in, they repaired it, came back fine. And then when it happened again, several months later, it was right before I went to NAMM. And in fact, they arrived at Alclair right like days before, we all got to NAMM. So I knew they hadn't started my repair yet. And I went and talked to the folks there who were very eager to hear about it. They're like, "You're a drummer, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." They're like, "We have an issue with drummers and sweat. So we're going to change the tips of these to not let, to be more resistant to sweat." And they kind of put, filter is the wrong word. They just changed the way the plastic is on the, not the ones I'm wearing now, but the ones that I wear on stage.
Okay.
And they have been fantastic for the last year. So if you have this problem with Alclair or with anyone else that makes your custom fit in-ears, talk with them. Explain, these are custom fit, and we are each custom humans. And
that's good advice.
You know what I mean? Like they can't really help you if you lost them. But any other issue, any of these manufacturers, and Alclair was great about it. But I talked to some other drummers who had experienced similar things. And so Alclair knew of this, and they're like, right, okay, we know what to do. And the guy texted from his phone to the, whatever the repair facility, and was like, do this for Dave Hamilton. I was like, okay, great. And then they came back, and they've been great ever since. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't used these enough to really, I'm still halfway between monitors and in-ears and trying to get into in-ears with my performances. I know that you're a big proponent of them for a long time, and I should be using them. But there's some, it is like learning an instrument. I think you said that one time, and it's a big change if you're used to a stage monitor.
I like that term. It's like
maybe
learning an instrument. No, I mean, I've certainly communicated that it is a transition, but I like that term because it's something that pretty much everybody that plays an instrument understands, that you got to put in the hours in order to be able to play. Yeah. It's true. What struggles are you having with that transition?
I think when I first started using them regularly, I was the room being so silent was throwing me. You're used to performing and you're hearing the crowd, and there's some energy there, and you lose a lot of that with these. Now there's ways, if you have a really good sound person, they can mic the audience so you can kind of hear what's going on in the room. And then also, sometimes we talk to each other on stage, and you kind of lose that. I don't want to spend the rest of my music career with a loud monitor blaring at me. I know that's not good for me. So I'm doing my best, but I'm not there yet, Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, the two things that you mention are certainly the universal for every instrumentalist, or singer, whatever instrument you play. Those are kind of two very common things that you bring up, and certainly I find, and perhaps I'm fortunate in this way as a drummer, that drum overheads solve both of those things. And okay. I want my drum overheads as probably they are the thing that I set to unity in my ears, and then bring other things up to match that, because I don't want to overplay. And and I've learned that if I can hear my cymbals, especially my ride cymbal, my hi-hat, that allows me, that keeps me from hitting harder without thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in between songs, those overheads are hot, man. And I hear all the conversation on stage, and it really works out. Now,
that's cool.
Yeah, if you don't want to hear the overheads, well, then that's, maybe not so good. But I do. So, but yeah, having ambient mics certainly makes a difference.
Well, then the next time I use this, I'm going to ask the sound engineer to put the drummer's overhead mic in my ears.
Yeah, see what you think of that. Yeah, you might really like it. Whenever I have, most instrumentalists don't think to ask for that. They think, well, I mean, the drums are right there. I'm definitely going to hear enough of them. Or they might say,
I tell them. I tell them I don't need to hear any drums, and I don't need to hear any bass. I can sort of,
feel it.
Yeah, but maybe I'll give that a whirl.
Yeah, anytime that I have put a little bit of overhead in for someone, if I'm helping them with their ears mix, they come to me, a couple songs or the end of the set, and they're like, that's what it sounds like on stage. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I like it. Yes.
Good to know.
So, yeah, but it's not, it's one of those things that most people think, well, I don't want that. If I'm not playing the drums, to keep that stuff out of my ears. And you might not want it, but it's worth trying out. Yeah.
And my analogy is not great for instrumentalists out there. It's not as hard as learning an instrument, but it is a big change.
It is a shift. Well, you have to put in the reps with it. I think is the part of the analogy that really does translate. So, yeah, man. Yeah. I know this is a loaded question for both of us. How have gigs been going over the last couple of months, Scott?
Well, so back in May, I had a foot surgery that I was due to have, and it kept me non-weight bearing, which meant on a knee scooter or on crutches for 8 weeks. And it's only the last 4 weeks or so that I'm bearing weight on it. I'm now just got authorized to put a shoe on and start to walk. So I'm moving very slow. I'm healing nicely, thankfully.
Good.
But it curtailed our gig schedule. It meant that the band did some shows without me, which worked out fine. And I'm very thankful to the band to meet our commitments. And then, there was a couple I just didn't want to miss. And we got a chance to play the Wolf Den, which is a big casino stage in Connecticut that we've always wanted to play. And I didn't want to miss that. So my wife went with me, and she had to, babysit me the whole time. And it was getting me on stage took all hands on deck. I was able to play the gig, but it's been a rough summer for me. But it's getting better. How are you, sir?
Thank you for telling that. I'm glad your band and you were kind of able to adapt through that. I am finally. We're recording this on about the Wednesday before it comes out, so July 30th. Monday was the first day since this whole Lyme disease thing started that I felt like myself again. That I felt like I had my energy back and all of that stuff. I didn't cancel any gigs. I certainly canceled some rehearsals in July as I was, kind of progressing through this thing. in retrospect, I absolutely should have canceled some gigs. The gig, I did a Fleetwood Mac tribute show at the Seacoast Rep Theater, which is where I do a lot of these tribute shows. And actually, I think you
I
snuck
came to
in.
see you. That's a
you
great
snuck
theater.
in there one day
Yeah, I
to
did,
see
yeah.
me. Yeah, that's right. In January when we did the Zeppelin thing. That was probably the worst, the peak of the worst of this illness for me. I mean, certainly it was within days of that. It was the day before my doctor put me on antibiotics, which really was kind of with Lyme. If you know anything about Lyme disease, that is the thing. Like once you know it's Lyme, or you suspect that it's Lyme, you get on doxycycline, and that often is what it takes to clear it up, and certainly has been in my case. But that was the day before I got on Lyme. Or on doxycycline for it. And I don't know how I made it through that gig. I'm not sure what I was trying to prove. Maybe my own stupidity. But that gig, it went fine. But man, I absolutely should have pulled the plug on it.
Ours went fine too. The ones that we played when I was really, was early in recovery, that they went fine. But it wasn't a great experience for me, any one of them, and I think I might have might rethink that again next time.
Yeah, there's a lesson to be learned there. I mean, there's the show must go on attitude that we certainly have all heard that phrase, and I think at some level we've all sort of embodied that phrase. But as I often will say when we're in the middle of prepping for a gig or whatever, it's like, we're not saving lives here.
No.
It turns out,
It feels that way when you're working so hard to get people to your show, and it means so much to you, but it is not.
But you're not, and you can cancel something, and it turns out it's okay. Yeah. It's maybe not the greatest thing, and you're disappointing a lot of people. If you're the one that pulls the plug, your bandmates are certainly the first people I think about disappointing, and it's a variety of things. Everybody's prepared hard, but it depending on everybody's situation and your band situation, gigs can be a significant part of someone's cash flow.
Sure.
And when you're taking that opportunity from someone, that's not something any of us, consider lightly. And then there's the crowd and, everything else. But at the end of the day, we're not saving lives here. So
well, actually, one of the things I wanted to mention, we had a gig this past weekend, and very suddenly one of our Kat, who's our fiddle player and the other lead singer in our band, she had an emergency, and she had to miss the gig, and I found out the night before. And so it was a park and rec sort of a gig for a crowd, maybe an hour or so from where we live. So our band's a little bit known, so anybody that would have come would have certainly known she was missing. She's a very big part of our band. But I called in a really great singer and a really great pedal steel player last minute, who both showed up, and I explained to the booker what was going on. He said, fine, the show must go on. And during the show, during our break, he approached me and he said that one of his most critical people in the audience says we're one of the best bands they've ever had at that event. And so we breathed a real sigh of relief, because we felt like we were operating on three wheels. But I mention this because I just think it's so valuable to keep your Rolodex up and make sure you're friendly to your music community, and who the players are out there that you can call in a pinch. And there are certain musicians who can just walk into any situation without a set list and make you better. And it's good to know who they are.
Yes, and it's good to maintain a good relationship with them too. Yes, for sure. I mean, this business is a relationship game. Every business is a relationship game, but this one especially. You're really operating in sync with people, and you need to be able to trust them. So I'm glad that worked out. I think we've all been in that position. Yeah, it's it happens. It happens. Did you wind up, I know your band plays a mix of covers and originals. Did you change the set list to adapt for the fact that you were bringing these, unprepared people in last minute, essentially? Considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played mostly covers, only a couple of originals.
Yep.
But even, this pedal steel player guy, I don't know, he's the instructor of our pedal steel player, this guy can play anything. He just needs to know what key the song's in. He'll make it sound good. And the singer, she knew almost all the words on hours notice, so it turned out fine. And
that's great.
Thankfully so.
Yeah, oh man, that's great. I had, just talking about gig issues. There's this one club that I play with, Casual Gravity, the hard rock cover band that I've been in for now almost a year.
Yeah.
And they changed, I'm not sure what happened, and I don't want to speculate, but the front of house engineer that used to work there is no longer working there, at least not on a regular basis. So they have not replaced him with anyone. The owner of the club understands sound quite well, in fact, and like, he's a pleasure to coordinate things with. He completely, like, when I showed up there with our split snake the first time, he completely understood what we were doing. He asked me to kind of walk him through what that meant for him, just to make sure he wasn't misunderstanding things, which I love, but it did not throw him for, like he understood the concept, and he's like, oh, okay, so I don't need to worry about your monitors, right? Oh, great. Okay. Like all that. So all of that was fine, but he's the owner of the club. And
he has other responsibilities.
Correct. And so he is not actively mixing the band. If he were, I think he would do a fine job. He has a decent ear, but he gets the band dialed in and then basically puts the iPad away, and that's that. And now we've done this gig, I think at least 2 times. We kind of have a semi-residency there. We've done it like 2 times or maybe even 3 in this sort of new configuration, if we'll call it that. And we get to the end of the first set, and it's not just like the people I know who in the crowd who understand sound who come up and say, hey, you need to fix things. It's everyone coming up to the band.
Oh, no.
Yeah, saying we can't hear vocals. Like it's very, very consistent feedback, specific feedback, and from people that are not trained sound engineers, not trained musicians, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, like this is something that needs to be fixed. So I'm not sure how to fix this, right? Because, there's several ways. One is bring our own sound engineer. Yeah, which we then have to pay.
Sure.
And how do we have that conversation? We would then need to have that conversation with the club, or choose not to and choose just to take it out of our thing. The other would be, over the years, I've trained my wife to be a pretty decent front of house engineer. And so even at the last gig, I was like, I can give you an iPad and log you into the mixer and you're good to go. She's like, if the club doesn't know that I'm doing that, I'm not comfortable just mixing on the side. And I was like, that's fair. Sure. Like, yeah, but there is a world where having that conversation with the club saying, hey, if you don't have time tonight to do this, we have someone here who's going to do it. I just need your blessing and your awareness that they're going to do it, that kind of thing. So and it's always, we have a good relationship with this club, and I think that conversation could be easily had. But, you're always managing relationships, right? So it's just one of those things.
When we were, early on in the band's history, when we were exclusively playing bars, we were, there's rare, at least in my experience, there's rarely money in the bar budget to cover somebody for sound. We have a 6-person band, there's not a lot extra to go around.
Sure.
But now that we've played with a sound engineer, most of the time you come to rely on that, and people that have heard you before have a certain expectation, and so it's very uncomfortable for me if I find myself in a position where there's nobody out there listening.
Yes.
What we've done is on shows where we're bringing the PA, which we're trying to get out of having to do that, but are still shows we do that.
Yeah.
Is we'll hire sort of a junior engineer, someone who's maybe doesn't have a great doesn't have tons of experience. In fact, I've got a friend who owns a sound company, and he likes me to bring his sort of young engineers in and just give them our iPad, or they bring their own computer, and it's they're getting the experience, and it's cost effective, because once I feel like once your band, if you're playing bars and got the faders next to you and you get yourself in a position where you start, using a digital system and you have somebody out front, that experience, you don't want to go back from that once you get there.
No.
And so you got to find ways to make it work.
Yeah, you do. It just knowing that there's someone out there who you trust to both pay attention and be able to articulate what needs to be done. It is, like you said, once you have that, you don't, like,
you get
going
spoiled.
back.
You get spoiled.
Yeah, you get spoiled. Yeah, but like, it's easy to be spoiled in today's world, and even if you've got to do it yourself and make the adjustments yourself from the stage, just having that trusted feedback loop is. But the thing is, now it's so easy to just give that trusted person an iPad and say, you fix it. You don't need to tell me anything unless you're having a problem, in which case come up. Like, we can always work together. But yeah, it's it is. I'm trying to think. This band does not play without a front of house engineer, like, ever. I mean, we found ourselves in positions where, oh, hey, guess what? There's no one here that really understands how to do this. We have to do it ourselves. But once we're in that position one time, we either don't play that room again, or we prepare for it the next time we're coming in.
Yeah.
And this place is a little bit different because we've been playing there so long. I mean, they've been playing there for years before I joined the band, and the place has evolved. So it's like, and they've got a decent system there, and with an engineer that knows how that system works, it can sound very, very good and work really well. But yeah, we've been hiring the same engineer for a lot of our gigs, and that really is a whole other experience when you not just have someone that you trust to make a band sound good, but when you have someone that you can trust to make your band sound good, and they know
that's sort of the dream. Like, if you can find a way to make your gigs pay enough that you can almost add somebody to the staff that's with you all the time that listens to you. That's we're not there yet, but I'd like to get there one day.
Yeah, we're basically right there, and everybody in the band understands and appreciates the value of that, to the point where we're kind of all willing to make a pay sacrifice to make that happen.
Sure.
Which is how you grow any business, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, but hiring that first employee in any business is always the hardest thing, because you finally get to a point where you're like, great, we're making some money, and now you tell me I have to give it to somebody else? Like, but
we have some non-employees that help us out a lot. That's one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about, is where we found a social media intern last year who was a graduate student in marketing, who just liked the band and was looking for a project. And she was so helpful to us in drafting our monthly newsletter. In fact, she graduated and moved back to her home state and just texted me yesterday saying, hey, what's going in the August newsletter? So she's still continuing to work for us. And we pay her in thanks if there was, and a graduation gift. But that's all she gets out of it. But we do have a few sort of super fans that we've managed to, that just really care deeply about the band, and the lengths that they'll go to help our band are amazing. For instance, we started doing a VIP experience at a few of our shows, some of our ticketed shows, and there's a fan of our band who operates the whole VIP experience. She imagines it. She makes sure that everybody's comfortable. She will go out and pick up food trays, whatever it is, to make the VIP experience good. And she just wants to see us succeed. And so that's her reward. And another fan, just last week, we played a venue here in Fairfield County that we wanted to play for a long time. And I had told one of our fans that this gig was important to us. We wanted to impress this room because they're the key holders to a lot of other rooms in the area.
Sure.
And she went out and bought 10 tickets and put a huge group together. So I think recognizing and thanking the people who care deeply about your band and not being afraid to ask them to help you has been really valuable to us. And it's always amazed me what the lengths people will go to. We have a fan in New York that she shows up at every show, and she and her family will travel, hour or 2 hour, doesn't care.
Yeah.
If we put a ticket up for sale, she buys one. And having those kind of people around can really help you grow. And I it just boggles my mind how much people will do for us. Sometimes.
Yeah, I want to tug on this thread a little bit. Obviously, the concept of superfans has come up in quite a few different ways over the years, and certainly recently in the past year when the Mallet brothers were on, that they talked about how they've essentially created a career with 2,000 superfans, and there's definitely that possibility in many businesses, but certainly this is one of the chief ones where that is the model, right? Like that is the primary model. If you look at any band whose name they started getting their name known because of their superfans, or at some point early on, they started developing these superfans. Yeah. And I think it is an active thing. There's some level of it that happens because the people like what you're doing, but that can come and go very, very quickly. That can be fleeting if you don't nurture that relationship. And I think Amen. You mentioned 3 things. You said recognizing, thanking, and you didn't say it in this order, but I think all 3 are important. Recognizing, thanking, and leveraging your superfans. And I think remembering that that's part of being a superfan is having the opportunity to help. And when you give them that opportunity, that's in a sense a payment of sorts. Payment's the wrong term to use, and I realize it's a touchy term, but there is that ability to feel and be a closer part of that which they care about, the band and all of that. And there's certainly going too far with it, where you're abusing that someone's fandom, but there's also not going far enough with it and losing that superfan.
Yeah, I think so. And it doesn't often take a lot. I mean, these people we call them fans, but they're really friends, at this point, but making sure you give them a free version of the latest t-shirt, and making sure that you thank them from stage when the opportunity arises, and do just like any human relationship, I suppose.
Yes.
But I think that if you're trying to get around doing original music and grow, you cannot do that alone, and you need people out there who care about you, and keeping those people close to you and focusing attention on that is really smart.
Yes, giving them that attention, because at some level, that's part of what they want. Is they like the band, they want to learn more about the band. They're the ones that pay attention to the interaction between band members on stage. They're the ones that are interacting with your socials when you're off stage, and going up to them, at set break or at the end of the gig, and spending some time with them, thanking them, giving them the opportunity to tell you something, because, it's a one-way communication stream for the most part, and letting that open in the other direction, that is the way to develop and cultivate those superfan relationships.
I think I frustrated the house manager at our last show, because I went to the lobby to talk to fans after the show, and I was out there so long that by the time I came back, he said to me, "Do you want to get paid?" I said, "Yes, I do," because he wanted to go home.
Yeah, he wants to go home. Yes, and that's part of the balancing, the juggling act, right? Is all of that. But it is a valuable thing, and not related to this podcast or the subject matter of this podcast, but other than in the way of superfans. But one of the things that I did in July that I probably shouldn't have done, but it worked out fine, is I traveled and went to a trade show conference called MacStock, which is a conference where there is a high concentration of fans / listeners of my Mac Geek Gab podcast.
Okay.
And I flew there the morning after doing the Fleetwood Mac tribute gig that I probably shouldn't have done. So getting on an airplane the next morning and going to a conference also probably ill-advised. In fact, it was after I landed there that my doctor called me and called in a prescription for the antibiotics in Chicago for me to go to some random pharmacy and pick up. Like this was probably not my smartest move, but having the opportunity to go and interact with, hundreds of these super fans, like it's hard to decline that opportunity when I know that that's what puts food on my table and has put food on my table for 20 plus years. So
20 years of that one.
That show just hit 20 years in June. Wow. I know. It's crazy. Yeah. But like, that's the thing is once you have that, do everything you can within reason. You're not saving lives here. But to hold on to it. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's an amazing thing to be in that position. Now, I realize, I did hard work to get to that. That's all great and fine and great. But I can throw away the benefits of that hard work, or I can embrace them. And so and hopefully keep it going for another 10 years or whatever. I don't know how long I want to do that, but I don't want to stop either. So same with this show. All right. We have a lot of things to talk about here, including what I've done to myself this coming weekend and in the weeks to follow, and I think some lessons from you, Scott, too. The next thing that I want to do is to tell you about our sponsors, because, all right, our motto, right? Always be performing, but that's tough if your live rig crashes harder than a cymbal in a toddler's hands, and that's what I love about our sponsor, Gig Performer. This is a rock-solid live performance platform that unites all your gear, virtual and physical, into one stable, glitch-free environment. If your current setup is stressing you out even just a little bit, this is your graduation day, folks. Because with Gig Performer, you can host your VSTs, run backing tracks, automate patch changes, control your hardware, all from one place. Ruben Valtierra, Weird Al's keyboardist, says Gig Performer cut his show programming time from 3 months to 3 days. Folks, that's the kind of time savings that makes you wonder why you ever did it the hard way. You want to downsize? Great. Guitarists are ditching pedal boards for Gig Performer and a simple foot switch. Keyboardists tour with just a laptop and a controller, same power, less gear, lighter load-ins. Your back will thank you. You can visit gigperformer.com/giggab both to learn about it and to get it, and also to claim 10% off. Or you can use code GIGGAB, all one word, GIGGAB, at checkout. Go try it for yourself. Gigperformer.com/giggab. Or like I said, use code GIGGAB at checkout for 10% off. Simplify your rig, reclaim your time, and always be performing. And our thanks to Gig Performer for sponsoring this episode. And of course, to always be performing, you first have to get your gear into the venue and onto the stage without throwing out your back. And that is what makes me and so many other people obsessed with our sponsor, the Rock and Roller Cart. This thing isn't just a cart. It is 8 carts in one. Really, 8 different configurations built into one frame so you can instantly adapt it to whatever you need to haul. You need a dolly? Done. You need a hand truck? Easy. You need a short bed for tight spaces, long bed for a full drum kit, flat bed for the giant amp you swore you'd never bring in again. You got one of those heads that has like your brick collection in it? Great. It's all right there. You just set it up the way you need it, and you're good to go. In fact, it's so easy, you can even reconfigure it mid-load in. No tools, no pins, no drama. And because it's built for the road, it's lightweight but rugged with a steel frame, caster brakes, and foam-filled, never flat tires. It'll roll smooth over cables, gravel, sticky floor venues. Ew. Basically everything short of lava. We have not tested lava yet. And when you're done, it folds flat in seconds, so it'll fit in your trunk, your van, or that one suspicious corner of the green room. Don't ask. Load in once, Load out fast and save your energy for the stage. That's how you always be performing, folks. And go to rocknrollercart.com. That's ROCKNROLLER cart.com. And use code GIGGAB20, GIGGAB, GIGGAB 20, for 20% off all carts. And this way you can get the cart that does it all. 8 ways to win. rocknrollercart.com, code GIGGAB20 for 20% off. And our sincere thanks to Rock and Roller Cart for sponsoring this episode. So, thinking about that SuperFan thing, I was reminded of a gig we just played with Bitter Pill at in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where you and I got the opportunity to briefly run into each other. We played the Music Hall Lounge, which is one of our favorite venues. And after the show, I made sure to go out and thank some of our super fans and just have those conversations with them. And I am often I think a lot about this topic of calling. I know we call our gigs. It's the name of the podcast. But thinking about them more as shows than gigs. And by that, I mean, everybody in Bitter Pill, we all met in one way or another because of being involved in musical theater. So everybody in that band understands that, as Paul Kent likes to say many, many times, live music is a visual art. I joke that in Bitter Pill, if you want attention, you have to take it because no one in the band is going to give it to you. But everybody knows how to perform. And it's not just from the moment we walk on stage. For that show, Emily, one of our singers, she typically builds set lists, so she built a set list. And there was some discussion about her doing a few acoustic songs that she has just recently written. The band hasn't learned, and it would make sense for that show. It's about a 90-minute show that we're going to put on, and it would make sense for us to do that. So she put them at the beginning, and somebody else in the band was like, "Wait, I think that should happen in the middle." Because that way we've created some flow to the evening,
I would think that too. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it was like, okay. And then the conversation a day later, our guitar player John was like, "Hey, whoa. So we're all going to leave the stage. Emily's going to do those 3 songs. The next song that we're doing is one of her songs. And it starts out, it's a song called Happy, and it breathes. It starts out very light. It kind of it never gets super intense, but it reaches its peak of intensity and then kind of fades out again. And he's like, what if we do a walk-on where she starts the song with an acoustic guitar? We all kind of come on as our parts come in, and then, we make it to the end of the song like we normally would, and then continue the set and let it kind of, evolve from there. And of course we did that and people loved it. But taking the time to really think about each gig as its own show, and the most important show can be extremely valuable in leveling things up.
I think that's a great thing. So at least a lot of our band's attention this year is focused on just that, putting on a show. When we started, we were playing bars. You're supposed to make music between the hours of 9 and midnight, and that's, yes. And so there. But now we found our way into the ticketed event world, or into the clubs and some theaters where people are paying money. They're not just there to drink; they're paying money to see you, yes. And they're expecting to see a show. And so how we walk on stage, how we try to encourage each other to make sure that we're smiling. There's a lot of different things. I learned that if I want to project better myself, if I want to look better singing, I start by singing the first few songs to the back of the room. I make sure that my head's up, and everybody in the band's got their things that they're doing. And I think we're getting better and better at it, but with more experience. But moving around on stage, encouraging everybody. And I really like what you said about, if you want attention, go grab it. I'm quite comfortable with any member of my band. If you want to step up in front and you got your good looking clothes on and you're smiling and you want to get the attention, go for it. Like, that's, people like that. And those moments are memorable. And we know that because, as you just said, the fans will tell you, "Oh, I really liked how you did that."
Yes.
Yeah.
They're there to see a show. Well, they're there to be entertained, and they trust us to bring and provide that entertainment. Now there's different layers. Like you said, it certainly counts as entertainment to play music from the hours of 9 to 12 while the patrons are enjoying their alcohol and maybe their appetizers and perhaps each other's company. I don't know. But that is a form of entertainment, right? Yeah. Another form of entertainment is being the wallpaper music as an acoustic act in a coffee shop somewhere where you don't want to be louder than the people who are trying to talk, right? Like all of that counts. But in every scenario, you get to decide how and when and to what level you are engaging and entertaining the people that are there. And I think the bands that put thought into that will, do better, but almost by definition, get better at it. Because you'll try things. You'll be like, well, that sucked. That didn't work the way I thought it would. Yeah. And then you don't do that again, but you learn something from it. And you're like, well, what if we tried this way to get their attention in that sense? And in fact, even that Bitter Pill gig, when we were about to walk on stage, Emily says, wait a minute, I'm not singing the first song. I was like, right. Yeah, Billy, her dad, it's happened to be singing the first song that was on the list. She's like, so I'm going to wait. She's like, I'm going to come out when you start the second song. It's like,
that's cool. That's a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. It's like, duh. And she didn't tell us because you never in that band and in a lot of bands, you don't really need permission. I mean, if somebody thinks an idea is going to fail, they'll say so, right? Like, we can have those conversations. But it was more she was telling us because it's like, don't worry when you go on stage, don't wait for me. Like FYI, I'm going to take attention in this way. Don't worry about it. It's like, great. Yeah, perfect. Love it.
If you can find ways to just create a few moments in a show like that are just special and unique and unexpected, that's worth its weight in gold.
That's the only thing you need to do is find one per show, and you'll get better at it. And suddenly you'll be like, well, we can't do all of them. Great. Save some of those for the next show. Make that different. You're good. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody in our band has a background in musical theater, but I can tell you that I should give credit to Kat Lyons, who's our musical director, and she often is the one that comes up with cool ideas about how we walk on stage or how we end songs, and yeah, it's a fun exercise. It's sort of like it's like, once you learn to play the songs pretty well, it's the next thing to work on. And it's a good thing to rehearse too that way if you can, especially if you're preparing for a big show. If you can set up your rehearsal space at the way that you're going to be on stage and try to act that out, it'll make it easier when you do it.
Yeah, it turns out, and you're right, you don't need to have any musical theater experience or any theater experience. Just thinking about
if we did, it would help.
Stage. Yeah, right. It usually doesn't hurt. I have some comments about musical theater that I might bring up in a little bit. But anyway, in general, it is good. But just like, in musical theater, in any theater, they don't just sit around and rehearse singing the songs. They also rehearse moving around on stage, it turns out. And then when you go see, a musical, you're like, look at that. They're doing choreography and it's like, this all works. This is great. Well, you too can do that in your band, folks. You don't need to wait till a director shows up. You can be that director. Yeah.
So Dave, for like when Bitter Pill does a 90-minute show,
yeah,
and then they have another one a month later, that's not too far from the first one, and there's going to be a lot of the same fans at both shows. Are you conscious about changing the song list or anything that you do? I'm trying to get that way because we don't want to bore anybody that's coming back. Yeah,
for sure. For that particular venue, there is a proximity clause in our contract for each show. And so I forget exactly what it is. Obviously, we always adhere to it, but it's 90 minutes and for 90 days or something. Maybe it's 30 days and 90 minutes or something like that. And we've worked with the club. Like we've had. I remember. I think it was last year. We were offered a gig a week later somewhere else that we really wanted to take. Or maybe 2 weeks later or something, but it was, well within the proximity clause time frame and distance. And so we called up the Music Hall Lounge. I think it was there, but I could have this wrong. But this happened even if I've changed the names to protect the guilty. We just reached out to them and said, hey, we have this opportunity. We have talked to them. They understand our proximity clause. They, and of course we, will agree to not promote this show until the day after our show there ends. So we certainly won't be promoting this from the stage in your venue, which you never promote the show unless you're four-walling all of your events. You don't promote shows somewhere else. But
really, because I just did that. You're not supposed to do that.
I don't think so.
I just announced the show that was 5 miles away from the venue we played on Friday night.
I don't, maybe that's a me thing. I don't know, folks. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Let us know. I always think. I always will announce the next show at the venue I'm at, and check out our website for other information, that kind of thing. But I always feel a little weird when I'm on stage with someone and they announce, our next show somewhere else. It always just feels a little like, It depends. Again, it depends on the gig. At a bar, I definitely wouldn't do it.
At a bar, I wouldn't either. Yeah, you don't want
right. If it's a ticketed event that tickets were sold to see us for, then that's actually different. That I wouldn't. I feel very differently about that. Yeah. But then they were fine with it. They're like, yes, of course. Like as long as there's no issue. But otherwise, we will change up the set list. We'll try and do some different theatrics, if you will, if we have that opportunity, something to make it so that you want to come to both. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. But sometimes that means not overbooking yourself in the same area, for 5 weeks in a row.
I think that it's, if you're original band and you're playing clubs and theaters, it's pretty easy to overexpose yourself.
Yes.
And we endeavor not to do that. And we're not afraid to travel. But it's something to be careful about and mindful about. You probably you play less.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. When we had a booking agent on the show last year, Laura Supan, and she said, oh yeah, for your home market, you play 1 gig per year. And I was like, oh, dang it. She sounds like she's right about that. It was instantly true. Like I knew it was correct, but I sure didn't like it.
I don't like the sound of it.
No, I didn't like the sound of it at all, except for the part that was like, we're doing a podcast, and that's great advice right there that I don't want to take. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a balancing act. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned what I've done to myself this coming week. Speaking of oversaturation, Bitter Pill plays a festival every year. It's over in Berwick, Maine. It's called the Lawn Chair Festival, and it's always great. We've traditionally opened the show. This year, when we put it all together, they said we would like you to close the show. Now that came with some concern from us right out of the gate. And the concern was, well, we've always taken advantage of the fact that we played first, or certainly were the first musical act, because we could get there before the festival started, not only set up on stage, but get, line checks and perhaps even a sound check done. And the way the running order of it's about a 4-hour event, and it is a variety show.
Okay.
Right. That's a good way to think about it. So there's certainly musical acts, but there's also, dance troupes and magicians and, lots of other things.
Sounds fun.
It is fun. It's great. But it's always a little bit of a trick figuring out if we don't play first. And we've always played early in the day, traditionally first. But even with us playing first, it's often been a trick figuring out when can we get our gear off the stage, because they'll book, a ventriloquist right after us or something. It's like, well, we can't be on stage you can't have 7 people on stage. They have stagehands and everything. You can't have 7 people on stage moving gear around and making visual noise when there's one person with a dummy. And you also can't be making any audible noise while that's happening because it's one person and a dummy and a microphone. And, so when they said they wanted us to play last, it was like, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to go. And
does that mean your drums will have to be on stage all day?
Well, so we asked these questions and we did not initially get answers. And then about 3 months ago, Casual Gravity, my other band, was invited to play a gig at a local casino here. Now it's only about 15 minutes from this festival. That gig starts at 8. This lawn chair festival runs from 4 to 8. And so I told the guys, I'm like, and I had it on our blackout calendar. Yeah. They came to me and when the gig came up 3 or 4 months ago, or whatever. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with this. If we play first, obviously an 8 o'clock gig later that day would be fine. In fact, Bitter Pill has done a 2 gig day with this festival as kind of the opening one. I said, but I think they want us to play last, but we aren't going to get answers out of them for a little while. And so 2 months ago, we finally heard from them as they were, and I say finally, I don't mean to sound frustrated. Like they need to do their thing. And they had prepared us for this, and so they said, you're going to start between 6 and 7 and you're going to play somewhere between a 30 and 45-minute set. Okay. So I went back to the Casual guys and I said, all right, here's the thing. We have to assume if they say we're going to start between 6 and 7 that we're going to start at 7. We have to go with the latest number that they give us because we need to plan, which means, and they said a 30 to 45-minute set, so 7:45 is the end time. We have to think about this. I have multiple drum sets. I can go set up another drum set at the other club earlier in the day. Right. And so, but the whole time I'm sharing this plan, I'm thinking, we're going to start at 6. I know we have to plan as though we're going to start at 7, but we're going to start at 6. This is going to work out fine. Yes, I'm going to go set up another drum set there, but otherwise this isn't going to be a cluster. It's going to be fine. But we also needed to reach out to the club, and we did, to prepare them for a potentially late start. If you think we're going to start at 8, we will definitely, if we don't say anything, we're definitely not starting at 8, So we told them it might be 8:30, it might be a little bit later, definitely before 9. The club was like, yeah, that's totally fine. Okay. It's like, oh, I really expected somebody in this process would be like, push back. And then I wouldn't book 2 gigs in the same day. I booked 2 gigs in the same day. That gig is Saturday. Today's Wednesday. On Monday night, we finally got logistics from the club. Our start time is 7:20 p.m. Yep, of course it is. Of course it is. I tried to plan for this, and I even failed at that. And so I was like, okay. But they only want us to play 30 minutes. Okay. And I said, what's going to happen with load-in? Well, they asked us to load in at 2:30 p.m. We pushed back on that and said, no, that's not going to happen. We'll be there at an hour before. And if it works to get us set up on stage with a full band, we will do that. Now, Bitter Pill is a band that can play in many configurations. And one of those is as an all acoustic thing. And it works out great. That kind of music works out great. So we are prepared to call an audible at the last minute and go acoustic, which means I have a pitch slap and a vocal microphone and no other drums. I can walk on stage, plug 2 things in, and we're ready to go in 3 minutes, and everybody else can do the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to have happened on Saturday by the time this episode comes out, but I have a guess. Because my guess is that it's lined up with dance troops and ventriloquists right up until we play. And we can't.
If it's 20 minutes late, you're in trouble.
20 minutes late for a 30-minute set. Yeah. The event has to end at 8. We are told.
Okay.
Which is good for Dave needing to, GTFO. Get to the casino exactly. But we even went to the casino on Monday night or Tuesday morning and said, hey, this thing has evolved in a way we did not expect and did not plan for. It might be 9 o'clock by the time we start. and expecting them to push back and say, well, it's Tuesday morning. We can find a replacement band. Great. And they're like, yeah, no problem. As long as you start by 9, everything's fine. All good.
Good.
Yeah, kind of. But I'm still stuck playing 2 gigs. So that I did this to myself.
Are you gonna change shirt?
I'm gonna change shirts. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to. It's gonna be the first gig is outside, so it's probably gonna be hot. But
okay.
Yeah, I'll change shirts and that'll be about it. But yeah.
There's we play this. We play I'm a sober person, and we from alcohol, and we play this event called Sober in the Sun in Massachusetts every year, and they have music all day, and they got a team of volunteers, and they do a really quick turnover, and it's great. Like they have drums and bass, but they have got tons of people that just grab your stuff and throw you on stage, and they get you up and running in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Flat.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work like that between bands.
No, and I think we're the only band with a drum set at this. Otherwise, there might be, an opportunity to just, to backline the whole day, which, again, this festival, they do a great job with it. The town loves it. Everybody that's there is top notch. It seems to me like there's no one involved in the organization that understands the logistics of live music the way I wish they did. But again, they're super great to work with. Other than this kind of like, we really won't know till we get there what the logistics are going to be like, and we knew that 4 months ago. I just wish I was smart enough to have said no, but to the second gig. But that's me.
I'm glad you're feeling better if you're going to do a double.
We'll see. We'll see how I feel after the end of this. But yeah. I don't know what else to talk about. You have a gig in Portsmouth coming up, don't you?
Yeah, August 15th, we're at the press room in Portsmouth, which is where, and it was funny because Dave and I wanted to meet, and he had a gig right down the street, and I think he was sweaty. He ran a couple blocks to run in and say hello, came up to the dressing room and met me and the band, and we took our picture together and had a good 10 minutes, and then he had to run to his gig across town.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was like, I was in between sound check and like the way things work at that theater, especially if it's the first performance or the only performance of one of these tribute shows. It was the Zeppelin thing. That was the first performance of it. We had rehearsed all afternoon, right up until doors opened, which was, I think, 7:00, or maybe 7:30 even. And then I ran down the street to say hi to you. On the way back, I grabbed a shirt from my car, and we started at, 30 minutes after house opened. So it was
thanks
like,
for making that effort.
No, it was definitely going to happen. Like I knew, my concern was that things might be pushed late and that I wouldn't get to meet you, but I would get to see your, part of your set. But I knew it was only going to be one or the other. So yeah.
This show on the 15th, there's a country artist, Gavin Mangari. So it's a double bill. So we'll play and then he'll play it. So it's a two bands for the price of one.
That's great. That's a fun room. I like seeing shows at that room. I like playing shows at that room. If you are going to use the house drum set, tell your drummer to read the instructions on the toms, because if there are instructions on the toms, what they are telling your drummer is to take that drum and put it under the stage and get the one with a better head out that is hidden under the stage that you don't know about yet. Okay. So, yep. Really, all the heads on all those drums need to be changed. And I keep, every time I play there, I forget to bring, I would happily just donate heads to the kit in the room, but I always forget. And clearly other people forget too, to the point where somebody drew on it. This head sucks. Instead of using the 13-inch tom, grab the 12-inch tom from under the stage. It has a pinstripe on it or something. So, yep. You had a Gear Gab selection, I believe.
I did. I know you like to talk about gear, and the best thing that everybody in my band bought a Lasko 12-inch fan.
Okay.
It's a little black fan. Maybe you can put it in the show notes. A picture what it looks
I've
like.
already put it. It's in the show notes already, and if you're watching the video, it's up on the screen. So
and it's got a nice long cord. It's about 8 or 10 foot cord, and it's got those plugs in the side you could plug a pedal board into. And any outdoor or indoor gigs, everybody in the band walks in with one of those with their instrument case as well. And they look good on stage. They're not expensive. And I bought that after I nearly had heat stroke last August. I got very uncomfortable, dehydrated on stage. I was fine after a few days, but having a fan blowing on you the whole time is worth it. It's a great piece of gear.
So this is interesting for those of you who aren't looking at the picture. It's a fan with an adjustable. It looks like it's got an adjustable angle on the blower. It's got 3 speeds. Well, 4 if you count off as one of the speeds. But then, as you mentioned, Scott, it's got 2 3-pronged outlets right on what would work out to be sort of the side of it there. So you plug this in, and then you've still got a bonus outlet, if you will, to plug all the stuff that you need in. In that this has a motor in it, have you or any of your bandmates found that plugging in something into one of these electrical outlets is you hear the hum of the motor or anything? Is it?
I'm glad I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't.
Okay.
I know that Kat's plugged her pedal board in there. We hasn't had any problems with her fiddle.
Great.
I know we've had an amplifier plugged into one before. No, however that thing's set up, it seems to be pretty clean power coming out of that. And
that's
you can
impressive.
chain them together. I mean, everybody should get one if you play outside.
Yeah. That's it's interesting. It's worth taking a look at this. I don't know that I can articulate what the design of this thing looks like, but it is not your typical just round fan. It
can blow at your feet, or you can put it up and blow it in your face. You can but you got a really adjustable angle on the blower here. So what gear are you recommending this week, Dave?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here.
Sorry, buddy.
No. Well, you know what? I will instead of recommending gear out of the blue, I got a note after doing Gig Gab 492. I mentioned that having an iPad plugged into the mixer, I needed to really crank the volume on the iPad. And I talked about this like this was some universal truth. And within about 12 hours of that episode going live, I heard from my friend Andy, who's been on the show and contributes to the show often. He texted me, and he was very nice about it. He's a front of house engineer here locally at the University of New Hampshire and other things, and very, very skilled with sound. And he says to me, Dave, you understand the difference between tip sleeve and tip ring sleeve, don't you? And I was like, yeah. He's like, right. So about that cable you have with your iPad that's causing a problem when you plug it into your mixer, what sort of jack are you plugging it into on the mixer? And I was like, oh my gosh. So the issue that I created for myself is I bought a stereo mini 8 headphone jack, which plugs into the iPad, to a stereo 1/4-inch cable. That fits into both of the jacks. And it turns out it's right for even one of them. It's right for the jack on the iPad. But for the jack on the mixer, it's a combo jack. So it's one of those that has 1/4-inch and XLR. And I'm very used to plugging XLR into these jacks. I'm very used to plugging an instrument 1/4-inch into it, like a guitar. So you don't need, like an acoustic guitar. So you don't need a direct box. It does that. But it turns out that those 1/4-inch jacks on those combo inputs, when there's XLR, the 1/4-inch jack is also wired as tip ring sleeve, meaning you can have a balanced input on the 1/4-inch jack, just like you can on the XLR jack. Well, when you plug a stereo signal into a balanced jack, the jack sees it as, it's balanced, it's tip ring sleeve. And so effectively, I was canceling out my own signal from the left channel to the right channel. That's not exactly what happens. Right. But that's close enough to what's happening to, as soon as he said it, I was like, oh, I can't believe I did this. He's like, oh no, it's fine. He's like, I just wanted to ask. He's like, I thought maybe you didn't know the difference. I'm like, whether I know the difference or not is sort of irrelevant. I didn't think about the difference when I was buying this cable or having trouble with it. And so I ordered a new cable that I looked around. What I really want is a cable that goes from stereo and sums it down into mono and is safe. Because going in one direction from mono 1/4 inch to stereo headphone would be fine. But that cable running with a headphone amp in the iPad would potentially blow the iPad headphone amp. And I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So I was looking for something that was built to go in the other direction. And I found it. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It goes in the other direction. It comes from the headphone stereo to 2 1/4 inch mono outputs left and right. I think it arrived while we were recording this episode. I decided that if it's too bulky, I really only need one because it's just a click and it's mono. And so I've decided that if the cable is too bulky because it has, the second 1/4 inch mono, I'll just snip that off. And make it into a single channel. But yeah, that's the lesson I got to learn this week, which is valuable, little embarrassing.
One to grow on.
It is one to grow on. Yeah, I always say I don't. I certainly appreciate it when I can give advice, and I was right about it. And it's nice when I knew something and can be right, but I don't need to have been right. I much prefer learning where I was wrong so that I can be right in a future time. So
I feel that way too.
Yep. It's kind of the way to go. And it's something that this particular endeavor of mine gives me many opportunities to experience. So it's a good thing. You have anything else before we get rolling here?
No, I think that's all I got for today, Dave.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for doing this. What a blast, man. I knew we would when we were texting last week. It was like, oh, definitely, this is what I want to do. Like, we need an episode like this. So yeah, thank you.
I hope people enjoy it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
and, come to the press room on August 15th. We're also going to be at the I think it's called the Ergmont Barn in Massachusetts. We're going to be at the Shea Performing Arts Center. We're going to in Massachusetts, the Ocean Mist in Rhode Island later November.
Okay.
NorthCountyBand.com.
That's what I was going to ask.
That's how you find us.
That's what I wanted to make sure people know about, because you don't have to be local to go and enjoy the music of the North County Band. You too can be a super fan no matter where you are, and it starts by visiting the website. So yeah. And I am eager to see your band. I have a gig on the 15th. And while I'm not rooting for rain on that day nearly as much as I'm rooting for rain this coming Saturday when I've doubled myself up, if rain were to happen on the 15th, I know where I'm going instead, because the press room is indoors and I get to see you. So
perfect. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Again,
thanks,
yeah, thank you. Amazing stuff. And is there maybe one more thing, 3 words, if you've got them to share?
Always be performing, right?
That's it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening, folks. Feedback at gitgabpodcast.com. Make sure to sign up for our mailing list at gitgabpodcast.com too. And we'll see you next week.